Hey guys, my name's Kyle. This is Auditing with Autism, where I put a camera on my shoulder, walk out into the world, film my experiences, and talk about them later. Today I want to talk about a real interesting subject we all think about. What's the purpose of life? I want to talk about what is the purpose of life. Videos ago, I made a video of the Aboriginal quote that said that the more you know, the less you need. And that's not exactly a purpose of life, but it certainly seems like a guidepost for how to live a life in a spiritual way. And I found another quote by a contemporary author that most of us know named Henry David Thoreau. And he came up with a quote that is similar. He says, quote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone." Isn't that saying the same thing? The more you know, the less you need. A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone. The more you know, the less you need. Sounds like Thoreau was on the boat. Well, that made me think about, well, what is the purpose of life? And I have this quote book, and I have some really great minds that are thinking about this topic. So I thought I'd share with us. A couple paragraphs here to share with us exactly what Leo Tolstoy thinks about the purpose of life. Now, Leo Tolstoy was a religious man, and he lived in Russia about 150 years ago. He's a famous author. If you haven't heard of his name, he wrote a lot of great books. Highly would recommend checking out Leo Tolstoy and reading some of his books. Um, well, what I read was so good that I had to put it in my quote book. Listen to this one. Again, the thesis question today is, what is the purpose of life? Tolstoy is saying, well, quote, "Religion is a relationship readily established on the basis of reason and contemporary knowledge between man and eternal, man and God. It is the one thing that moves humanity forward towards its destiny." So religion, according to this author, according to Leo, thinks that religion is the purpose for humanity to move itself forward. Okay. Well, religion, I mean, isn't that bad? Organized religions, they do so many bad things, and stuff like that. Well, he talks about that a little bit. He says that, well, before I get into what else he said, to answer the question, is religion bad? Well, Socrates says if the truth about reality is in our soul always, then the soul must be immortal. So if reality, that which is absolutely real, which science doesn't know what is totally real yet, we're still looking for reality. But of course, the religions say reality is the prime mover, the source, God. And we are all contingent. Our lives, our galaxy, our everything is contingent upon God. We wouldn't be alive and have families and relationships and or anything without the universe. And the universe was made by God. And if you don't believe in God, then you can at least believe in the universe, and that the universe, without it, we wouldn't be. So we can still be on the same thought page together and thinking that, without God or the universe, without that prime mover, we wouldn't be alive. And so therefore reality, according to Socrates, is always in our soul. And so the soul must be immortal forever. Good news, you don't die. You're immortal. You may go through some changes like we always do, but good news, if you're alive, you're immortal. You're going to be you know, you're going to be forever. You may not look the same forever, but you certainly will be forever. So just know that for sure. I mean, people have known this for a long time. Socrates was 2,500 years ago, and we've been thinking it this way since before then and after then. So the idea of God being, the prime mover giving us the universe so that we can have life is a pretty fundamental thought, and most people can understand and believe it. So while Tolstoy is saying, well, not only is there this prime mover, not only is God real and giving us an immortal soul, but we as humans, we organize using our contemporary knowledge and our reason that God gave us. We organize ourselves around the thought of the prime mover, around religion. We use religion to bring us into a unification to honor and love God, right? And so Tolstoy says, yeah, that's the purpose of life, is to do that, to love God, to be a part of a religious community, and all of that. But Tolstoy is giving us a big red warning flag here. He wrote this 100 years ago, a little bit more than that, and he says, in recent times, since the philosopher Hegel, who claimed that all that exists is reasonable, the question, what should I do in this life, which usually has a spiritual answer, has receded into the background as philosophy has focused on studying the world as it is and the need to accommodate this kind of study within a preconceived theory. That's critical. Preconceived theory. Well, if you're studying the physical world with a preconceived theory that God doesn't exist, well, then you get to learn about the physical world without God in it, Well, there's nothing wrong with learning about the physical world and technology and all of it. But if you do it without knowing that God is in it, then we're going to miss out big time. And that's what Tolstoy is saying, that somebody else has got a preconceived theory of why we should learn technology, learn science. 150 years ago or more, we started to pull away from religion and started to discover the world around us without thinking about God being in the world around us. And I think this is the mistake. And Tolstoy is also saying that. He also thinks it's a mistake. Well, listen to this. This last paragraph, he really sounds like a rebel. He gives it hard, thumb nose, or, he really puts down the ruling classes here. Listen to this. This is more true now than it ever has been. The applied sciences, such as technology and medicine, lacking the guiding principles of religion, are departing from their reasonable purpose and heading off in wrong directions. Thus, technology is wholly directed away from making life easier for working people and towards refinements needed by nobody but the rich, which further divide rich and poor, master and man. And if it happens that a few crumbs of these inventions and refinements fall into the hands of the working masses, this is certainly not because they were intended for that purpose, but only because they, in the nature of things, couldn't be kept from them. So you can see how it's really important that we understand that a lot of other people have their own reasons for setting things up and creating theories about things. It's really important that we don't forget where we come from and who we are. Even if we have a bunch of physical things that are really exciting and shiny and nice to look at, and everybody wants these things. But when you really start to understand about religion and God, the question becomes, do you want these things more than you want your immortality? The immortality is there for us if we can play this game right called life, which is a terrible way to put it, calling it a game and everything. But a lot of people can relate with that term, I mean, it's like, it really is a lot like the ideas of the Matrix and other ideas where we are, not fully awake to the reality. And what Tolstoy is saying here is that he sees, 100 years ago, he sees that the people with the money and the power are actually using the newfound technology. 100 years ago, we were learning about quantum mechanics and chemistry. You know, everything was fresh, and people were trying to figure out how to use this new information to create the new world. And as Tolstoy points out, authentic religion was not a part of the big picture there. And it really hasn't ever been, when you talk about, when you read the history of the world and you see the people with the money, it's extremely rare that people with the money also had the spirit. I mean, I guess that's why I like the story of Solomon. He made the right choice. Solomon from the Old Testament, the richest man in the world ever, or something like that. Well, he didn't choose to be rich. He chose God instead. And, if you read the story, and because he chose God and his spiritual immortality, God decided to grace him with riches and wisdom also. That's more important to me than the riches. But God graced him the things that most people would ask for, said God. Most people want physical things, or to be smarter than everybody, or, something like that. But Solomon didn't. He wanted God. And then, like I said, so God gave him gifts. That's an important message. Like, if you really strive for God, your gifts are coming. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to ask for them so much. You have to intend them, but you don't have to. What I'm getting at is, if you ask for them because you really want a physical thing more than you want God, God probably won't be giving it to you. It's it's a basic principle of love. But anyway, so Tolstoy was really on board here. He was picking these rich guys apart, saying, hey, they're making theories that aren't even thinking about God. Well, that was 100 years ago. And now, 120 years later, we can see where the world is. Fortunately, it's still in a pretty good place. I mean, it's obviously got a lot of troubles, and a lot of people are getting hurt in the world today. But the possibility of having a rich spiritual life is never better, really, because of the internet and the transference of information. It's really never better. So it's a double-edged sword, but really it's, if you believe Tolstoy, it's all leading us towards that religious life that we really want. I have to say, there's a book the Catholic Church put out called The Catechisms of the Catholic Church. Catechisms of the Catholic Church means the dogma of the church, the rules and the laws of how the church believes things should be in the world. It's a great book. It's one of the best books in the world, actually. And the Catechisms of the Catholic Church. So I wrote one of the quotes down, of course, from that book. And it plays into what I just said about Tolstoy. Tolstoy, again, he's warning us that these people, the rich people who have the money, are setting up the world for themselves and not for us. And they are not setting it up in a religious fashion, at all. So the Catechism, number 1915, Life in Christ, says, so great. It says, one must pay tribute to those nations whose systems permit the largest possible number of the citizens to take part in public life in a climate of genuine freedom. It's so good. The idea here is The best nations in the world, according to the Catholic Church, are those nations that allow its citizens to participate fully in the public life. No judgments, no animosity. Come and bring it on, brother, sister, you're welcome. Bring it in. But they can do this in the climate of genuine freedom. Like, you bring it in, but you're free. You're still open to do it how you want. If you work 4 hours a day and you get your work done, that's great. If it takes you 20 hours, that's how it is. You're free to do it. And this catechism is not talking about a country where people are welcome to take part in public life under some theory that some rich guy has set up, where you have to do it this way or that way, and it's not around genuine reality or freedom of to be connected with God. It's really interesting to me how the structure of power has developed itself over the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. And I'm not going to talk about it right now, but it gets really deep into an idea that I read about this idea in a book called The History of Money by Zarlanga. One of the best books I ever read, but mainly because it's a history book, but it's always centered around where the money was from 3,000 years ago to now. And it basically talks about how the Egyptians and the people in India, traded gold and silver with each other for a really long time. And a lot of people think there is a big cache or hoard of gold underneath the pyramids, because people are asking themselves, where did all the gold go? Or the silver. But that's, again, not really what I'm trying to talk about right now. What I'm trying to talk about right now is the importance of religion, of a spiritual life. What is the purpose of life? Is it to have $100 billion? Is it to have, maybe 20 properties? I mean, what is the purpose to life? Is it to just maybe have 1,000 children? Or is it to, maybe create a business? I like the business idea because usually businesses can help people. And that's one of the great reasons why free markets are kind of important, because it allows for, as long as they're safe, but free markets are really important because it allows for a lot of generosity and compassion. People make these contracts with each other during business, when they make a business deal, and they will do that if it's a fair environment with each other in a really great way, where it will usually benefit more than just themselves. One last quote. I was just mentioning about the systems, the nations whose systems permit the largest number of citizens to partake in its public service. Well, another book I read called The Urantia, on page 43, the Urantia says about these systems, it says, quote, health, sanity, and happiness are integrations of truth, beauty, and goodness as they are blended in human experience. Such levels of efficient living come about through the unification of energy systems, idea systems, and spirit systems. And so, when the Catechism of the Catholic Church is talking about nations having these important systems, it is probably referring to the health, sanity, and happiness of its citizens that are using these systems. And if we live in a country, I'm gonna throw out a cliche country, but North Korea. If you live in a country like North Korea, where you're definitely not free to partake in the civic life or have a religious life, then your systems, of health, sanity, and happiness are going to be changed for sure. They're going to be different. And so the rulers of North Korea, like Tolstoy mentioned, they have this theory on how to learn about the world around them. And this theory doesn't have God in it, it doesn't have religion. And so people are going to be having less sanity and happiness. And it's going to affect everybody in the whole country. And it's certainly not going to give them their purpose of life. You know, the purpose of life is to have an internal relationship with God. And as much as you can express that externally, that's great. What didn't Jesus said something right here? Yeah. Well, Jesus says, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment, you know? And you can't do right judgment very well if you're living in a system, a country that has a system that's not allowing you to fulfill your purpose of life, you know, which seems very clearly to be knowing about, like Socrates said, the immortal soul. And why would we want to know about that? Because we owe gratitude, we owe glory to that which is giving it that soul to us. God sustains our life and our immortal soul. And if we don't live a life, honoring that, we're going to be missing out on massive graces and, gifts that God gave Solomon, for example. And so that's what I'm here to say today. We're getting close to Easter, so I'm kind of on the binge here a little bit with this topic. But, I guess that's enough minutes. Thanks for showing up. Hit the like and subscribe if you're interested. I love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.